To me, Bitcoin's a great example of, can we use science and technology for good?
Hello, how are you?
Do we want to use it to swindle people and to enrich a small select number of people? Or do we want to use it to do a different set of things altogether?
Meltem Demirors is a venture capitalist, cryptocurrency investor, advisor, and advocate from New York. She's the chief strategy officer at CoinShares and runs her own blockchain startup fund, Shiny Pony Ventures. We stopped by Meltem's Manhattan apartment to hear how she's building a more inclusive financial system with blockchain tech.
I first wanted to have you tell us a little bit about your parents and your family.
My mom and my dad are both from Turkey. They're from a small village on the close to the Mediterranean coast. Not a lot of people had cars. There was not a lot of people who had electricity in their homes. There was no running water or indoor plumbing in most homes. As I was being raised in the Netherlands, I spent a lot of time going to Turkey. And so I firsthand got to experience the difference between living in a developed country and a developing country. It's just an interesting contrast. I think that points out at an early age how different life can be. And one of the most defining characteristics of how different it is the ability for people to access the financial system.
How are you working on trying to fix that or help move that path forward?
Every day we interact with money, every second of every day, but it hasn't been reinvented since the dawn of time. And so to me, having cryptocurrencies, having things like Bitcoin, for the first time, there is an alternative option. It's not a bank, it's not a government, it's people, and it's a new set of values. And so what I always worry about, which has been kind of an ongoing thought, is, are we simply recreating the same financial system, just with a different asset and with a new 1%?
This is clearly a big passion to you, and it kind of like hits you. What does that look like for you? Like when you were in school, moving forward even into just the workforce, like what has that been like for you?
It's been exactly what you imagine it to be. So in undergrad, I remember I had like an advanced calculus class, and I had a female professor who was great, but I was the only student in the class who got an A+. I would consistently set the curve for every exam. And I remember at the end of the semester, my professor asked me, she was like, "Oh, who in the class was helping you?" And I was like, "Everyone copied my homework." That was sort of my first like, oh wow, this is what we're up against. Then I went into oil and gas, and that was obviously very male dominated. Every client I ever had was a male executive. I would go to board meetings full of men who were all white and over the age of 50. And they were like, "Oh honey, get coffee." And I was like, "I'm not here to get you coffee. You have to push." But there needs to be systemic change.
When you're older and you look back on your life, like what do you hope that you've been able to help provide to this world that we're living in? And do you ever think about that, and what does that look like for you?
Well, one of the things I started doing when I was at Digital Currency Group is actually trying to track how many women worked at companies. And so what I found is for companies that had under 10 employees, all of the small companies at Digital Currency Group had 0 women on the team. Very few companies had a female founder or a female on the executive team. So that's one thing, is can I help companies hire more women? And I've actually been working with some recruiting firms who are going to help sort of formalize that process. The best way for me to enable the type of change I would like to see is to control the flow of money so that I can use it towards creating structures that I think are more inclusive and help change some of the power dynamics in our world.